Under a little crabapple tree on a farm lane in New Jersey, a minister and his choir singer lie side by side. Someone has arranged them there, someone has torn their love letters into pieces and scattered the pieces over the bodies. It is September 1922, and for 4 years, no one will answer for it. Then, in the last week of July 1926, 100 years ago this week, the case claws its way back onto every front page in America. The banner needed only 3 words: Hall widow jailed. This is part 1 of the Hall Mills murder, the case the papers called the most baffling crime of the century, told through the real newspapers that covered it, from the archives of the Library of Congress. Start where the Washington Daily News started, with the case in brief, printed like dates on a headstone: September the 14th, 1922, Reverend Edward W. Hall and Mrs. Eleanor Mills murdered. September the 16th, bodies found under a crabapple tree on the Phillips farm. October, the governor himself, displeased, takes charge of the case. December the 13th, grand jury discharged without taking action. And then the box skips ahead, past 4 silent years, to a single line in the summer of 1926. July the 28th, Mrs. Hall arrested. 3 faces printed side by side for 4 years. Edward Wheeler Hall. The rector, an honor boy of the Old Grace Church Choir. Frances Stevens Hall, his wife. Heiress, 49 years old and reputed to be worth $1 3/4 million. And Eleanor Mills, choir singer, wife of the church sexton, a janitor's wife from a humble house, flattered, the papers said, by the attentions of the cultured and kindly rector. He taught her an appreciation of good literature. That is the polite version of what happened between them. September the 14th, 1922, 7:30 in the evening. Eleanor Mills walks out of her house and is never again seen alive by the members of her family. The rector leaves his mansion the same night, for what the papers would later call a secret tryst. The darkness of the night, one lawyer wrote, simply swallowed them up. 2 days later, on the Phillips farm, the bodies are found beneath the crabapple tree. Hall had been shot through the head. Mrs. Mills had been shot 4 times. And worse, and all around them, those torn letters. The papers printed the letters. Of course they did, in his handwriting, printed in facsimile. Dear, dear, darling Wonderheart of mine, I will see nobody before I look down into those deep wonder eyes of love. And in hers, I have a noble man's deep, true, and eternal love. My heart is his, my life is his. Letters like this, the caption noted, lay beside Hall's body. Whoever killed them had read those letters, and wanted the world to read them too. This is the tree, the arrow is the newspaper's own. In the weeks after the murders, the Phillips farm became a carnival. Sightseers trampled the lane. Souvenir hunters cut the crabapple tree down to a barely visible stump. The investigation went the same way. 2 counties argued over jurisdiction. Evidence walked away in pockets. A lawyer for the dead woman's daughter wrote of a month of shameful inactivity on the part of officials. In December, the grand jury went home without charging anyone. The case did not close. It just stopped. For 4 years, the tree stump stood in the field and nothing moved. Mrs. Hall went abroad and came home, telling interviewers she still hoped to avenge her husband's murder. Then, in July 1926, the case was reopened by, of all things, a marriage annulment. A man named Arthur Reel filed suit against his wife Louise, formerly a maid in the Hall home, and claimed in his petition that she knew what had happened that night and had been paid $5,000 for secrecy. She denied it. The state of New Jersey did not wait to find out. Within a day, the investigation was open again. July the 28th, 1926, the middle of the night. State troopers arrive at the mansion on Nicole Avenue with 2 warrants. By morning, the widow is a prisoner, and the banner headlines need no second line. Mrs. Hall arrested as slayer. The papers marveled at her composure. Cool in jail, she branded her arrest. Ridiculous. I will make no statements, she said, until I learn what the murder charge is based on. 4 years of silence, and the first word out of the case is ridiculous. What followed was 2 weeks of pure 1926. Released on $15,000 bond, Mrs. Hall left, in the words of one paper, for an unknown destination and on an unknown mission. When a photographer raised his camera at her door, her lawyer smashed it and knocked the man down with a heavy briefcase. Her half-brother Willie, eccentric, the papers always said, went missing for 2 days. And out on a mule farm, a woman the press called the Pig Woman repeated the story she had told for 4 years, that she had been riding her mule that night and had seen it all. The new prosecutor, Senator Simpson, did not intend to walk over old ground. His experts examined the wounds and produced a colder theory, that Hall and Mrs. Mills were slain in an automobile, and their bodies later carried to the crabapple tree and laid out beneath it. Not a Lover's Lane crime at all, a staged one. And to prove it, Simpson demanded something the 1922 men never dared. In the paper's words, exhuming of the bodies, for a thorough autopsy. 100 years ago this month, New Jersey prepared to open the graves. A special grand jury, the papers agreed, was a foregone conclusion. The Pig Woman was questioned again. She reiterated her story. The maid held to her denial. The widow held to her silence. By autumn, all of it, the tree, the letters, the mule, the money, would walk into a courtroom in Somerville, New Jersey, and become the loudest trial America had ever heard. A trial with a dying witness carried in on a hospital bed. But that is part 2. This November, exactly 100 years after the jury took its seats. Until then, hold the question the whole country held in 1926. 4 people were said to have stood under that crabapple tree on a moonless September night. 2 of them never left it alive. The jealous spouse, the quiet husband, the eccentric brother, someone nobody ever named. A century of armchair detectives has never settled it. So the comments are open. Who was under the tree? This has been the Century Desk. Every week we open the newspapers from exactly 100 years ago. The Hall Mills file stays open on the desk. Part 2 arrives with the trial this November. Subscribe so you're in the courtroom when it starts.